What's going on, guys? This is Larry at TJRSM, and today I'm going to go over some of my visual settings and cues that I have set up. I'm running a AMD GPU, actually an R9 290X to be exact, and I see a lot on the forums and stuff in various places that people are having some problems with AMD, and it is true. I have them myself. AMD is supposedly working on this, but until then we can only wait for a driver update for this. So here's my settings. I'm going to just review them real quick for you. Hopefully they'll be helpful for you. If you got any tips and hints that you're using that can help others, post them in the comments below this video. So oops, switched out. Alright, so go to options, help, of course, and we got visuals, and all these visual FXs I actually leave them on just the way they are, because why not, it looks awesome. So but as far as performance goes, well, first I'm going to look at hardware. Just as a quick note, VR Predict, I don't know what that is. But use shared memory. You do need this on if you're trying to use third-party software and equipment like, say, Sim Instruments Dash. Okay, so use that as yes. And then as far as the resolutions go for the performance, set your monitor resolution or your TV, windowed no, texture resolution on high. That's as high as you can actually go. Texture filtering, I went to about 16 times. To help speed some things up, you can lower this down to 8 or 4 or 2. But 16 seems to work pretty good. I'm getting 70 to 78 frames per second when I'm running karts. And as far as running, GT class cars and all that, really not dropping below 30 FPS, but I'm averaging around 55 to 63, somewhere in there, if I'm remembering correctly. But when it gets all jumbled up, like at the starting line and stuff like that, or crunching into turn 1, it will drop around 35, 32 FPS. So still, oddly enough, the game actually renders it all pretty fluidly, and even though it drops down to 30 frames per second, it's not even noticeable. I mean, you don't see any lag or anything, but I do see some lag if you're dropping down in the 20s. And I tried one setup before I went on an online race, and I was running 19-20 frames per second. The resolution was horrible. It wasn't lagging my driving, but everything just downscaled and looked really bad. So but in one of those was having what was it? I had FXAA on, and it didn't work very well for my AMD card. It may work okay for your machine setup. I am running an i7 processor, 4900 something series. I forgot what it is, but fairly new machine, about a year old. But anyway, so here's my list. I've finished going down the list here. VSync off, of course. Anti-aliasing off. FXAA, I left that off. Like I said, some people run it and love it. Kind of the differences between these is, I believe FXAA increases the sharpness of it, and then SMAA is kind of like an advanced FXAA, where it smooths out the edges even more. But like I said, FXAA did not work well on my AMD 290X card, so I've been using SMAA, which actually by default, when I uploaded the Project Cars game, it came defaulted at this. I bumped it up to Ultra, but here's another savings for you depending on your hardware. You could run this down to high or medium, and it actually looks still great. I can't even tell a difference between high and ultra myself. But there is a little bit of an impact. I mean, I'm sure some of the trained eyes can see difference in a still image or something, but I ran ultra just well, because it's there, and I was still getting a good FPS. So reflections on high instead of ultra. This made a pretty good difference. So I lowered it down to high, and that increased my FPS. Environment map. I think that's just a map that's going around on your screen. Well, I don't even enable it, so I just keep it on low. Car detail ultra, because I like it to look good. Again, you could, with a lot of cars on the screen, you could lower this one down a little bit to increase some FPS. Track detail ultra, same thing. You could lower it a little bit. Experiment with these two. The biggest one I see is you can leave all these on ultra or high settings, is maxed out settings. If you change this 16 down to 8, that makes a pretty big difference. Let's see what else. Motion blur. I noticed actually more I increased motion blur, the more FPS I got, and I think the reason is because the background as you're approaching it in the game is blurry, so it doesn't have to render all those textures and resolutions. It just blurs them out and concentrates on the current view, just so many yards in front of you. And so it kind of gives it more of a cinematic view where the background's blurred, and what's in high contrast is what you're really needing to see. And it doesn't seem to decrease my field of view or anything. I can see plenty far ahead, but I noticed as I raised this up, which high is the highest settings, it actually improved my FPMS, or FPS rather. Okay, detailed grass. This actually made a difference, like night and day difference. You put it on ultra, and it just killed the FPS with all the trees and grass and all that around the tracks. I keep it on medium. Honestly, I can't tell a difference between medium and ultra. The grass blades still look defined and individual. And like I've ran over into the grass and looked at it, and it still looked really nice. So I was like, this is a racing game. I'm flying past these points. So having high detailed grass is nice, but it's not that important. Particle level, I keep it on high. So that's I believe that's the stuff flying up off the track and everything. Particle density, I keep that on ultra. That seems to make everything look nice as far as objects flying, like rubber flying up off the track and stuff. Stretched headlights, reflections, I keep it on no. You can put it on yes. You can play with it and see what you like, but I keep it on no. I haven't really noticed any difference in it. But anyway, that's my settings for the monitor. I also want to cover quick little settings for your car setup, and this is just from other places I've seen, and then just me literally experimenting with my car to see what happened and what did what. So I'm gonna go select a car. Let's say I'm gonna select one I really like. I'll do the rough, and this one here. Oh, by the way, if you want to set your library on this, you can click through this left and right. I see some people are confused on this, and I was myself. But let's say I like that one the most. I just click this green button. I actually put in my review. This is a little bit hard to find. It wasn't obvious to click on. It's not really hard to find. You see it, but it wasn't obvious what you should do besides the arrows. But they actually set it there. I just assumed if I exit it off, it stayed there, but it doesn't. You actually got to hit this green button, and then you'll see it goes out to the back screen, backs up the screen. So that's to set your library, right? Let's set up your setup of your car. I already have something set up here, so I'm gonna edit it. But you could create a new setup. Edit this. You got your tires and brakes, and your aerodynamics. This is per car, per track, really. I mean, you can really highly tune this stuff. So everything's in bar here, but I pretty much leave this stuff alone. And if I'm having problems controlling my car with a high horsepower car, I will up the traction control slip a little bit, and that helps. But usually play with it just where it is and see how you like it. But what I notice is, using a wheel, I'm using a Fanatec Clubsport wheel version 1, and what I noticed to get good feedback through my wheel was right here. I'm going to force feedback. Now the master scale, I noticed if you increase this, it makes your wheel really heavy, and just a lot of force to actually turn your wheel left or right. Uh, but you look at my FX scales here, and this is for PC, of course, guys, but PlayStation 4 and Xbox One will probably be different for you, based on the wheels that you're using. Um, but I'm setting all these at 100. I played with these. I put them down to around 20 and 50 and 75, and it just made my wheel feel a little bit loose to me, and I didn't like that. Loose as far as from the 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock position, left or right was a little bit too loose, so I didn't like that. So I increased these up to, left them default basically, or back to default at 100. But what I do like is this FZ scale. I like to feel when I'm going over curbs. I like to feel my tire roll up on the curb. I like to feel the different curbs jolting back into my tire. So this is handling the up and down of it. You can read here on the side, FX, FZ, FX, FY, and FC scales refer to the fraction of longitude, lateral, and vertical tire forces fed to the force feedback system along the X, Y, and Z. So just think of X, Y, and Z, right? So force X, force Y, force Z. X being accelerating and stopping, Y being like your yaw, turning left and right, the sway through the tires, and Z being up and down. So the forces, from curbs and going over bumps and stuff. This is kind of the one you feel a lot through your wheel, or you don't feel any through your wheel. But default's 100. I keep it up to 200, and it makes a lot of difference. Smoothing, generally you should turn smoothing off on everything, because smoothing just kind of hides the effects coming through the game, and I leave them all off. I think this one's defaulted around 10, and you can leave it there if you want to, but it just smooths out the effects that you're getting up here. So if you're starting to get your wheel gyrating left and right when you're just going straight down the track, you'll want to update up your smoothing just a little bit. So and this is FX, FY, FZ. This is in the same planes as what you see here. So up and down, left to right, forward and backwards, stopping and going. So MZ smoothing, let's see, it can help dial up to affect the longitude, lateral, vertical, and twisting for signals. I haven't really messed with the MZ smoothing, so I'm not going to say anything good or bad about that. ARM settings, I did hear about this somewhere in the forums and other videos as well, that you can play with this, and it seems to give a lighter feeling wheel, or a less heavier wheel, if I'm remembering correctly. But I haven't messed with this much. It really didn't have a need to. After changing these to 100, or leaving them at 100, left my master scale alone, or back alone to what it was suggesting, and this up to 200, felt really good. The only problem I had was the back end stepping out was a little bit hard to tell when it was stepping out. So if you look here, this is under spindle, and if you arrow over, you will see that it has a body and SOP, that's seat of pants. Feel you can adjust these accordingly, but what I've paid attention to that I learned from some forums is changing this lateral scale and differential scale, and it seems to help, just mildly, but enough, between you can tell if you have it off to 0 or 10. And I've tried 20, and I didn't really see any benefit from 20 on them, but I set all of mine up preset up as 10 right now, and I can tell pretty much what my car is doing most of the time, and it's easy to control slides and stuff this way. So oops, I skipped out of this. Anyway, that's my settings there. Try them out, see if you like them. If anything, this is a base setup. Be sure to hit save when you're done. And you'll notice now this is to save all of the cars, or you can save it in individual circuits. A certain circuit that you want, but I do all. That means it's going to be every circuit available. And then when I go into each circuit, if I decide that I need to change something, I'll just change it per that circuit after I'm in the game. So make sure it's checked and then hit save. Yes, and that's it. Alright guys, so hope you enjoyed this. Hopefully this will be helpful to you. If you have any suggestions yourself that you're finding, leave them in the comments. I'd like to hear about them. I can always learn something different, and I'm sure everybody else can too. So hit us up and we'll see you on the track. Alright, bye.